9 p.m. Eastern Time, and Newsmax TV's special coverage of the Republican National Convention continues. I'm J.D. Hayworth, and we saw him at the podium earlier, but thought you might want to hear a little more of what my old pal, America's toughest sheriff, Sheriff Joe Arpaio of Maricopa County, Arizona, had to say to the assembled convention tonight.
We are the only country in the world whose immigration systems puts the needs of other nations ahead of ours. We are more concerned with the rights of illegal aliens and criminals than we are with protecting our own country.
And that is the perfect way to welcome in our next guest. You usually see him weeknights here at 9 p.m. Eastern. It's our good friend Dennis Michael Lynch, the host of Unfiltered. And he joins us unfiltered tonight, but via telephone. It's great to have you back on, DML.
JD, thanks for taking on the hour. It's funny, I just listened to the sheriff there, and he said those same exact words at an event that they held for me out in Arizona 2 years ago. I mean, there's nobody more passionate about illegal immigration than the sheriff.
He has been remarkably consistent, and what was very interesting, about 6 years ago when there was a certain Senate primary, someone who remains in the United States Senate talked about building a fence, but then went back to support the Gang of Eight amnesty bill. I forget that guy's name, and there was some big guy who ran against him, but that's all water under the bridge. Listen, let me talk to you about the convention and what has transpired there. Obviously, the disappointment with the Ted Cruz situation, but before we go there, the one thing about Mr. Trump has been his family, all the kids coming out and speaking on behalf of their dad. Last night, it was Eric Trump who got to the podium immediately following the Cruz address. Let's listen to what Eric Trump had to say.
To the laborer watching me right now, forced out of a job by undocumented workers, illegal immigrants, my father is running for you. Vote for the candidate who can't be bought, sold, purchased, bribed, coerced, intimidated, or steered from the path that is right and just and true. And quite frankly, friends, vote for the one candidate who does not need this job.
Well, when he put it that way, DML, against the backdrop of the significant economic harm that American workers are facing by illegal immigration, I got to tell you, Eric really made an effective case, did he not?
He did. I mean, I think the one thing that will come away from this convention without knowing what it is that Trump is actually going to say tonight, it's going to be impossible for America not to recognize how wonderful his children are. And, you know, a lot of times I would say to somebody, yeah, well, you know, you want to gauge a guy, you want to gauge a woman, look at their kids. And so, you know, for all the shortcomings that people say that Donald Trump has, at the end of the day, you've got to look at his children. And they had every reason to grow up and to be spoiled and to be using drugs and everything else we see, whether it's the Kardashians or any of these other rich, spoiled kids who run around. They're not. They're real, true Americans. They're successes at whatever they do. I mean, one thing Eric last night was pointing out is he's very charitable. I mean, when he was 22 years old, he started a charity. Most 22-year-olds are out drinking at the bars. This guy's giving money away to children's hospitals. So there's something very, very special about the Trump family. And in many regards, JD, whether Trump wins or loses, and obviously we hope he wins, I think you're looking at the next American political family. There's no question. You look at all the different Trumps here, and I'm sure Ivanka's going to bring it home tonight pretty well. And you're going to say, I could see each one of these in a role, playing a role somewhere later on in life, whether it's at the president level or whether it's somewhere in Senate or Congress.
Well, is it conceivable, by your lights, DML, that one of the Trump kids might actually take on a formal role or appointment in a Trump administration?
I don't think so. I think one of the things that Donald is going to ensure the fact is that his children are continuing to run the Trump businesses and the Trump brands. You know, let's remember that he got here and he's very wealthy because of that Trump business. And I think those kids, they're too young at this point. Let's put that out there. You know, they may speak a great game and they're very successful. And as I've said, they're fantastic people to be around, but they're young. And I think right now what America needs is experienced leadership. And so I would rather have people who are more experienced in the different areas that we need experiences in. That said, if we could transition back to Ted Cruz for a second, because immediately after that speech last night, and I mean immediately, I wrote a blog on my website that said this was nothing about 2020 and 2024. This was about this man not being able to get past the fact that Donald Trump annihilated, in many ways, his wife, his father, and gave him the nickname Lying Ted for the rest of his life. And Cruz, as far as I'm concerned, JD, he took all the wisdom and all the smarts and everything he had ever been taught by Alan Dershowitz and everything else, and he threw it out the window because he needed that stage to get back at Donald Trump. And you know what? This morning, when he was speaking to the Texas delegates, he proved my point. He proved my point. And that man self-destructed last night. He absolutely self-destructed. He is done.
Well, I can't really argue with that assessment. We'll get some debate from some of our panelists tonight, but it's hard for me to see him launching any type of comeback, certainly when it comes to pursuit of the presidency, which seems to be his defining goal, the defining goal of his lifetime. Let me move to another topic. And DML, it's something I've called the myth of the monolith. Open borders Republicans and all the Democrats who, quite frankly, don't want to get out a vote, they want to bring in a vote with illegals, are saying that if you're Hispanic, you are anti-Republican, therefore you're anti-Donald Trump. But last night, a state senator from the Commonwealth of Kentucky, Ralph Alvarado, may have changed some minds. He certainly seemed to come out as a game changer. Here is some of what State Senator Alvarado had to say last night at the convention.
Americans face a very important decision. Do we want someone who is brutally honest, perhaps to a fault, or do we want someone who is brutally dishonest? It is not a decision this year about America moving left or about America moving right. It's a decision about America going up or America going down. And by protecting the American dream, we can make America first again. There is only one candidate who will protect it for our current and future generations, and that candidate is Donald Trump. And I've got a message for one more person. Hillary Clinton, you have failed the Hispanic community, and you don't deserve our vote.
State Senator Ralph Alvarado, your assessment of this template that the left and the open borders crowd always wants to lay out, that, oh, gee, you know, everyone with a Hispanic last name is instantly for open borders and amnesty.
You know, one of the things, I think there are 7 key things that Donald Trump must do tonight in his speech. And one of those things is he has to reach out to the Latino community, and he has to explain how illegal immigration and mass immigration and the sort of numbers we're taking in right now really affects the Latino and the black community. If he can articulate that the right way, and he really hasn't done that over the course of time. He's been very effective in talking about how illegals are bringing in drugs, and they're bringing in crime, and they're killing people like Kate Steinle, but there's the economic level to it. And if he can drive that home to Latinos and express to them, listen, this has nothing to do about race. This has to do about economics. And if he can drive that home, I think the Latino community, some of them anyway, who are maybe on the fence right now, no pun intended, will go to the Trump camp. Because, look, there's one thing we all have in common, whether we're on the left, the right, or in the middle. We all need and want more money because it's very expensive to live in America. And if he can drive that home and express to the Latino community how it is that he will give them the pathway to the American dream, then I think he has a real chance. And he is the person who can bring that and drive that home for him. Whether he can do it effectively tonight, that's still out there. But I think the biggest thing he has to do tonight, the single biggest thing, is he has to express the issues facing females. That is me, if he does not bring over the woman vote, he's in trouble. He's in trouble.
We are going to find out shortly, in about an hour, when he comes center stage at the convention center. This morning, Donald Trump guested on ABC's Good Morning America and gave us a little bit of a preview of what he plans to say tonight. Let's look and listen to that.
I'm talking about trade. I'm talking about law and order. I'm going to be talking about borders. I'll be talking about many different things. Our country has a lot of problems. We're weak in so many different ways.
Now, with reference to the female vote, DML, Ivanka is coming out to introduce her father. Can she make the case, or does it have to come directly from the candidate, in your opinion?
I think the fact that she is as elegant and smart and humble as she is definitely a help, because it gives the nation the opportunity to say, hey, listen, look what he did in helping raising such a wonderful daughter. But at the end of the day, we are pulling the lever for Donald Trump. And he has a record of 3 marriages. He's got a record of infidelity. He's made some remarks that people will look at and say he's against women. We know what they are, no sense of repeating them. I think if he does a humble sort of presentation to the women at home, specifically the single women, single mothers who are struggling every single day, if he relates to them and he looks them in the eye through that camera, they will believe that he will make life easier and better for them by giving them more opportunities. If he expresses himself as the guy who, although I am rich, I still feel your pain, America, because look, he's rich and so is Hillary. But if he says he feels the pain of Americans, he will drive it home. And I do believe that between him and Ivanka, that they could bring in enough female voters to where he could get over the top. But without it, JD, I believe he's dead in the water.
Well, to be continued, something to keep an eye on in the days ahead and in the next hour when Mr. Trump steps up to accept the party's nomination. Dennis Michael Lynch, host of DML Unfiltered, that you see each weeknight at 9 p.m. Usually. Thanks for checking in by phone. Appreciate it, DML. When we come back, my old congressional colleague and chairman of the House Intelligence Committee back in the day, Pete Hoekstra of Michigan, as our coverage continues.